So is that the case? Do you think when it's all said and done, the Lions are going to probably use maybe their second or third pick on a quarterback?
It wouldn't surprise me. And they are going to get linked a lot to Malik Willis just because they had him in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. They obviously like him. Ben Johnson is now the offensive coordinator. He liked what he saw from Goff at the end of last season. And hey, look, I've been a Goff detractor. I still don't think he's the long-term solution.
Sure.
But the Jared Goff that played the last 5 or 6 games of last year, you can win with that guy. You've got to get a better supporting cast. But Khalif Raymond was their field stretcher. He's not coming back. He's a free agent. They can use a guy like Calvin Austin in the draft. Perfect fit in what they used Khalif Raymond for, and even more dynamic than that. Amon-Ra St. Brown, phenomenal receiver, was one of the 5 best receivers in the league down the stretch, regardless of rookie status or anything. He played really, really well and was a perfect fit for what they wanted to do. But man, if you get a guy outside of him who can stretch the field vertically, who could be a threat in the red zone with some size, that's that's a jackpot. I know it would be very early to take a guy like Isaiah Likely they have the number 66 pick. That's early for a tight end with all the other needs that they've got. But man, that guy would be a perfect tandem fit for what they want TJ Hawkinson to be.
Lastly, free agency. So give me a big splash. Give me a name out there that if they were going to spend on one player or 2 players, who would it be?
The big one is Marcus Williams, the safety from the Saints. Brought up under Aaron Glenn's tutelage.
When the 2022 season begins, do they play more of a 4-man front or more of a 3-4?
They both Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell answer this at the combine. They are going to a more predominant 4-man front.
Okay.
It's not a 4-3 though. It will be a base 4-2-5. Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator, will be an NFL head coach very soon.
Yes.
And good for him. He's earned it, by the way. He loves running the 3 safety look. Look at what you can get at 32, 34 in the pass rush department. Jermaine Johnson probably not, but a guy like Boye Mafe.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of guys that are very in deep. That range.
Yes.
Very deep pass rush draft.
Especially for down linemen. If they're going to succeed, this is going to be the offseason that's going to take them there. So I'm sure there's a lot of fans that are very excited about the possibilities, and I'm sure there's a lot of fans that are also kind of skeptical about, well, we've been down this road before. How are we going to screw this one up?
Yeah, and I can't tell those people that they're wrong.
All right, we are talking Detroit Lions football on the Our-Lads Football Network with free agency getting underway next week, the draft, of course, next month, and tons of crazy trades going on every day now in the NFL. Not yet for the Detroit Lions, but maybe that's coming. So Jeff Risdon is joining us either way. Jeff, how's everything going?
It's good to be with you, and I can't imagine them pulling off a bigger trade than they did last year, but you never know these days. When Russell Wilson can get moved, anything can happen.
Well, the quarterback situation is big everywhere, and we're seeing that this week. And we saw it last year with the Lions, and now that the Rams won their Super Bowl and Moore gets the future to do it, that's what is going to happen. You're going to see a bunch of teams that can't or don't believe in this crop of quarterbacks, and they feel like the only way to do it is to get a veteran. So we're getting all this activity. As far as the Lions are concerned, when the deal was made, and we talked about it last year, kind of figured this could be a couple of year deal, that Goff could still be the starter 2022 until they do find their guy. With 3 picks in the top 34, do you believe that if they hold on to it and they don't trade down and accumulate more picks, and there's nothing wrong with 3 in the top 34, but let's just say it's 3 in the top 34 with pick number 2. We know that's not going to be where they're going to take a quarterback if they stay there. But with those other 2 late picks in round 1 and early round 2, they can move up if they want. No matter what, they'll be able to land a quarterback. One of those other guys could be Sam Howell, could be anybody. We don't know where these guys are going, even though this Willis kid seems to be this year's pet project by everybody's, imagination.
That's for sure.
Yeah. Everybody's in love with, this guy who basically is, to me, he's Lamar Jackson. At the best, and I don't think
I wouldn't even
Jackson.
go that far. From what I've seen, he's Jake Locker. So
there you go. Never know. I agree. Yeah, he's baby Lamar Jackson, and I don't think he's going to be anything better than that. But anyway, that's not going to be a Lions issue, I believe. So is that the case? Do you think when it's all said and done, the Lions are going to probably use maybe their second or third pick on a quarterback?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. And they are going to get linked a lot to Malik Willis just because they had him in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. They obviously like him. The quarterback's coach is Mark Brunell. Mark Brunell played a similar style to what Malik Willis does. Brunell has not hidden his affection for Willis. So you're going to hear a lot of people thinking they're going to take it at 2. I would be flabbergasted if they take Malik Willis at number 2.
Oh.
It wouldn't actually shock me if they wind up getting a taker for somebody trading up to number 2 to get Malik Willis. I think that's much more likely than the Lions doing it. I don't necessarily agree with that. That's the right way to go, but look, he's got the highest potential of this class. There's no doubt about that. The fact that he's not close to it yet doesn't seem to be dissuading a lot of people. I mean, you go back and watch the Liberty versus Army game last year, and you tell me if he's even a backup in the NFL. So
he's got a lot of work ahead of him.
He does.
No question about it. To me, he's almost kind of. I look at him the way I would look at Trey Lance, is an athlete who's running the position. Who, all right, I get it. Yeah, maybe he's got a stronger arm. But how many quarterbacks do we see in the NFL? Prospects with strong arms. I mean, okay,
right.
He's got the strong arm and he can run like a running back. That's why they're in love with him. And like you said, yes, he probably has the highest upside. I could probably agree with that, but that doesn't always equate to being the best quarterback of the class. And I'm not even sure if that's going to be the case. I know there's a lot of detractors on Pickett. I'm not one of them. I feel Pickett's going to have a long career in the NFL. I like what I've seen with him ever since he burst onto the scene with that big win over Miami when they were undefeated, and I followed him ever since. He's a winner. He's got a strong arm. He's athletic, more athletic than people give him credit for. He's a much safer pick than Willis in my mind. But again, you never know which GMs are going to fall in love with which quarterbacks.
Yeah, you do. And if you're going to roll the dice in this draft, I understand why people would go at Willis. I probably would as well if I were making that decision. But I'm not making that decision. And more importantly, the Detroit Lions are not making that decision where they can get Malik Willis. Will they take one at 32 or 34? That would not surprise me, especially if it's a guy like Matt Corral, because I think I know they've done work on him. Look, he's not the athlete that Malik Willis is, but he is a good athlete.
He's a good athlete.
He's a very he always has an eye on making the big play, and that's something that you do not get with Jared Goff. And that was something that was painfully evident even when Jared Goff played well late in the season. And he did play well late in the season, and that does need to get noted. Once the Lions changed offensive coordinators, they dumped Anthony Lynn. They installed basically Dan Campbell as the head coach with Ben Johnson being promoted from the tight ends coach. Ben Johnson is now the offensive coordinator. He liked what he saw from Goff at the end of last season. And, hey, look, I've been a Goff detractor. I still don't think he's the long-term solution.
Sure.
But the Jared Goff that played the last 5 or 6 games of last year, you can win with that guy. You've got to get a better supporting cast, and that's part of what this draft and free agency will be about for Detroit as well. But 2022 is Jared Goff's year to prove if he's the guy in 2023 or beyond. I do think that they're going to look strongly at an insurance policy or a developmental guy like Matt Corral can be. Desmond Ridder, maybe.
Another athlete.
Yeah. His biggest issue is that his release is so slow. It really showed it during Senior Bowl week when he's throwing in comparison with the guys that are right next to him. Like, it just takes him that much longer to get the ball out of his hands. I mean, there's only so much that you can improve that and speed that up without impacting the rest of the process. So
also didn't play well in the playoff game against Alabama.
He didn't. Alabama's tough, but
Sure.
you're right. Then the other side of that is you're looking at he's playing against NFL defenders there, and that he's got to learn how to do that. Now, to his credit, a year before that Georgia Cincinnati bowl game after the 20 season was one of the greatest bowl games I've ever seen.
Sure.
And he looked phenomenal in that game. So I'm not going to write him off, but my guess would be that if the Lions aren't getting a guy like Matt Corral, maybe Sam Howell. Hard to see that one though. I think they'll be okay in waiting a year. Remember, they have 2 first-round picks next year as well. They have their own as well as the Rams pick next year. So, like to your earlier point, if they want to move up and get Willis, they have the ammunition to move up to 10. They can make the trade that brought Patrick Mahomes to the Chiefs, where you're getting a first, another first, and a third to move up. They can do that if they want to. And it wouldn't shock me if they did that, but I don't think that Willis is going to last that long to be in that sort of range. And B, I don't think that they're that desperate or that in love with Malik Willis, because this is a team, they realize that even if they got him, look, he's got to wait another year. You've got to do something with what you've got. You've got to upgrade the talent base around Jared Goff. Look, this team is decrepit at wide receiver. It's a little bit better that they did bring back Josh Reynolds yesterday, as we're recording this on Wednesday. He came back on Tuesday. Free agent, very good find. 31 catches in 6 games with chemistry with Jared Goff from their time in Los Angeles.
Yes.
And he and Amon-Ra St. Brown can be a good number with Amon-Ra as your 2 and Josh Reynolds as your number 3. That's fine. They don't have a 1.
No. And Cephas could be a 3 or 4.
Yes, and Quinton, he'll be back. He broke his collarbone last year. They liked what they saw from him early, so he's got a chance to be, your number 4 outside receiver, and number 2 is your heavy slot. But Khalif Raymond was their field stretcher. He's not coming back. He's a free agent. They can use a guy like Calvin Austin in the draft. Perfect fit in what they used Khalif Raymond for, and even more dynamic than that. But that you're not looking at a first or a second round pick there.
No,
so they have to get better at wide receiver. They're aware of that. We got a breakout session at the combine with Johnson as the offensive coordinator, and he made it very clear that they're going to be addressing wide receiver, if not also in free agency, but definitely in the draft as well. So I would expect one of those 32, 34 picks to be a wide receiver.
If they trade down from 2, is that a really good indication now that they're thinking about Willis? And by the way, you've talked about all these quarterbacks, and I was the only one that talked about Pickett. And I know Pickett's different than these guys. The other guys you were talking about had more of an athletic side to them. Is there a specific quarterback that does not fit what Detroit is trying to do as far as the quarterbacks that are going to be picked in the first 2 rounds?
Not necessarily. I'll say this, though, and this is something that Dan Campbell off the record has said, and on the record has hinted at, is that they're not interested in a lateral move from Jared Goff. They want somebody who can eventually be better than Jared Goff. And they've made that pretty clear. Kenny Pickett, to me, is similar to Jared Goff. I think his ceiling is probably a little bit higher than what we've seen from Goff in the last couple of years, but he's that similar style. And they've talked about wanting to get the threat of the run.
Yes, okay.
Jared Goff is not a runner among his other detractions. He's certainly not an athletic guy. He's not unathletic. I was actually pleasantly surprised with him that he can move a little bit. He was I'll say this, and I'm guilty of it. He gets crapped on too much for his ability. The Jared Goff that we saw the last 6 weeks of the season, I get why the general manager Brad Holmes traded for him and liked him, and why he was once the number 1 pick in the draft. Like I see it. I don't buy that that's the long-term solution in Detroit, but it's certainly worth trying. I mean, if you're looking, look, we just saw, just before we started recording this, Carson Wentz getting a third opportunity to let yet another team down. With his superior athleticism, I would take Jared Goff over Carson Wentz today. No question about it, hands down. So they're not in as dire straits as a lot of other teams appear to be right now. I mean, he's certainly better than what Seattle has with Drew Lock. He did, and by the way, played really well in the game that they lost in the 20 playoffs as well. So it's not like he's without ability. It's just that you probably want somebody a little bit more dynamic, and that's where the alert for Malik Willis comes in. And if they do trade down from 2, assuming there's nobody's coming up to get Willis at 2, I would have to think that he would definitely be in play, because then they can package, move picks around here and there and get whatever they need to do with again, 3 top 34 picks this year, 2 top 32 picks next year. They definitely have some room to swing with that.
Was there a particular reason why Goff played well late?
Yeah. And some of it was Josh Reynolds coming back. Some of it was the change in offensive scheme. They asked him to look down the field more. To his credit, he looked better doing it, better than even I expected. What underrated thing that happened was that TJ Hawkinson and DeAndre Swift both got hurt. That forced them to look more at the wide receivers and open up the outside of the field. Goff was too complacent early on in the season to just take the easy throw. Look, the 2 best receivers on the team at the time were Hawkinson and Swift. They're both really good in that 5 to 10 yard receiving range. You go beyond that or outside that, not as effective. That played very well with what Jared Goff wanted to do. When they pushed him and forced him to look more down the field to guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds, getting Khalif Raymond a little bit more involved down the field, it opened up his game, and I think he realized, hey, I got something here. Like, I can do this. Like, yeah, and it fit very well. So the change in offensive coordinator should be very good. They're getting Hawkinson back. They're getting Swift back. But again, they have to get the alpha dog wide receiver, because they just don't have that yet. Amon-Ra St. Brown, phenomenal receiver, was one of the 5 best receivers in the league down the stretch, regardless of rookie status or anything. He played really, really well and was a perfect fit for what they wanted to do. But man, if you get a guy outside of him who can stretch the field vertically, who can be a threat in the red zone with some size, that's that's a jackpot.
Would the Lions, because I would believe they would they be one of those teams that would be able to take a chance on Jameson Williams because of the rebuild? They don't need to rush him. And if he's healthy in 6 months or by 2023, then maybe we've struck gold.
Yeah, and that would not surprise me at all if he's there at 32, if they wouldn't strongly consider that, or just take him outright, because like you said, they're still not under a lot of pressure to win. They've got to be better than 3-13-1. That's clear. They cannot go 0-8-1 to start a season again, or 0-10-1 actually to start the season. That can't happen again. I just think that if ever, look, they got, aside from the fact that they were at the beginning of a rebuild, they got ravaged by injuries last year. They were starting at one point. Jerry Jacobs was the best cornerback on the team, an undrafted free agent last year, who started camp as the number 11 cornerback. Yes. He was their best starter in the entire secondary for a good month. And most of that was injury related. Give Jerry some credit. Jerry played very well, played much better than expected. But my goodness, the injuries that this team took last year were just getting all the guys back healthy will help them, get at least double the win total. Now, if you add on to that, you can wait for a year for Jameson Williams to be perfectly healthy. You get him back in November, you bring him back after the bye, let him get 6 to 8 weeks at the end of the season. Get comfortable in the offense, figure out how he fits, where he works best. That's definitely something that they'll have to consider.
So with the wide receiver, what you're saying is okay, they're going to probably look for 2 receivers, whether free agency or the draft. Definitely somebody that could stretch the defense and maybe add somebody with some size.
Yeah, and that's another thing. A guy like Christian Watson at 32 or 34, if he's there, makes a lot of sense with the combine that he had.
Oh yes.
With the Senior Bowl that he had. Remember, the Lions did coach they coached the other roster in the Senior Bowl, but they're intimately aware of how good Christian Watson was down in Mobile. He's certainly a consideration there as well at 6'4" and running the way that he did. There is no shortage of receiving talent in that 20 to 40 overall range in this draft. I think that's a very good sweet spot for it, and that positions the Lions very nicely to get one of those guys.
Okay, now let's talk about on defense because I'm not sure what they're running yet, and we talked about this last year about what are they going to do? Are they going to switch schemes? Are they running a 4-3? Are they running a 3-4? So is there, and I know everybody kind of runs variations of both. They talk, okay. But The way it looks now, personnel-wise, what do you see them more than likely gravitating towards when the 2022 season begins? Do they play more of a four-man front or more of a
Yeah.
3-4?
They both Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell answer this at the combine. They are going to a more predominant four-man front.
Okay.
It's not a 4-3 though. It will be a base 4-2-5.
Okay.
And you will not see three linebackers on the field very often, not even in a jumbo package.
That's good for the Lions because they've had a lot of issues at linebacker for
years now. For years and years and years. And keep in mind that right now the only linebacker on the team with any notable experience at all is Derek Barnes, who wasn't good as a rookie. Future's bright still, but he did not play well as a rookie.
Yep.
Alex Anzalone gone, free agency. Jalen Earsmaven, free agent. He could come back, but Sean Dion Hamilton, who was looking really good in camp before he got hurt, he's also a free agent. They got to add a linebacker, but it will only be one that probably plays a whole lot. They're certainly going to be looking at guys in the middle rounds to fill that. Guys like Damone Clark from LSU, Troy Anderson from Montana State certainly fits what they're looking for. Kind of a bigger guy who can run and get sideline to sideline and carry a tight end in coverage to the safety. Here's the issue. Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator, will be an NFL head coach very soon.
Yes.
And good for him. He's earned it, by the way. He loves running the three safety look. And the problem is that right now, before free agency signings, they have one safety on the roster. It's Will Harris. Will Harris might be the worst starting safety in the league anyways.
Wow.
It's not good. So they are definitely in the market for a safety. We very strongly expect them to attack that, at least one of those in free agency, whether it's Marcus Williams, Tyrann Mathieu. There's a whole host of guys. Quandre Diggs coming back to Detroit, which he's never really been replaced, would be wonderful. But they have to get a safety in there. That's certainly a consideration as well at 32 or 34, if not 2, and Kyle Hamilton. So
yes.
And
that's also something that when I was going over my first mock draft, and I haven't even put it out yet because I'm still patiently trying to figure things out, but that was what I did. I said, you know what? He might just be too good of a player to pass up for this defense, and
agreed.
I could see that happening.
I could too, especially if they're interesting at edge because if you're going to the four-man front, you've got Trey Flowers, and who's probably not going to be back as a salary cap casualty. It just hasn't happened yet. But Romeo Okwara is coming back. He was a major force in 2020. Got hurt early last year towards Achilles. He's much better with a hand in the dirt. They do have some guys that can possibly fill in there. And look, it's a very deep draft at pass rush. So The question is, at 2, are you looking at a guy like Aiden Hutchinson or what's his name from Georgia?
Oh, Georgia, Walker.
Walker. I think Walker has surpassed Thibodeau in what the Lions are looking for. I know they spent a lot of time with Thibodeau. I know GM Brad Holmes has gone out and seen him play in person twice. I just think that when your closest physical comparison is Myles Garrett, you're going to have attention put on you, and that's what Walker is. He fits that role very nicely, as does Hutchinson. They're going to get one of those guys. They're going to get a crack at one of them at number 2. If they don't go there, if they elect to, because look at what you can get at 32, 34 in the pass rush for it. Jermaine Johnson probably not, but a guy like Boye Mafe.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of guys that are very in deep. That range.
Yes.
Very deep pass rush draft.
Especially for down linemen.
Yes. And they took Levi Onwuzurike in the 2nd round last year, Ali McNeil in the 3rd round last year. Onwuzurike did not play well, didn't look good. They're hopeful that it was just because he was still hurt from college. He had a hip injury. He didn't practice a whole lot. McNeil was a home run as a nose tackle. Made the all-rookie team and deserved it. That guy's an NFL starter for a long time. But if you're going to have a difference maker, probably need somebody next to Onwuzurike or above Onwuzurike to pair with Look, Julian and Romeo Okwara will be on one side of the line. Julian backs up his older brother. It's a decent little contrast. I'd like Julian to be a little bit better than what he is, but as a pass rush specialist, you could be worse. So they've got to get that other side started. By the way,
do they bring back Charles Harris?
They will do it if the budget is right, and he would be open to it. We've had a little powwow with him not long after the season where he would consider coming back. He was good last year, 7.5 sacks, played a lot better against the run than you had ever seen him play in Miami. So I was encouraged, and look, he was a great asset in the locker room, and I don't think that was something that they expected. He was a guy that really helped a lot of the younger guys. Worked very well with Onwuzurike and McNeil and Derek Barnes, who effectively is kind of the same guy. And it's weird that they've moved Barnes to the off-ball linebacker position when he at Purdue was at his best as that sort of joker role, the stand-up outside rush linebacker. He doesn't really get a chance to do that in Detroit, but it wouldn't surprise me if Harris came back. And if they did bring Harris back, then you're definitely looking at a situation where Kyle Hamilton at number 2 from Notre Dame makes a whole lot of sense as the centerpiece of look, in this defense, safety is far more critically important than what linebacker is. That's something that I think most people are catching on now, that especially in this sort of defense, that you've got to have playmaking safeties more than you need really good linebackers. And there isn't a better, I'll date myself a little bit here. The last safety that I remember going number 2 was Eric Turner. I remember Eric Turner. I lived in Cleveland when he was drafted there in 1991. Kyle Hamilton reminds me a lot of him as a big guy who can fly in the open field, who understands body control, angles, football geometry. It's all there for him. Look, Eric Turner, in his last year before he blew out his knee, led the league in tackles and interceptions.
Wow.
Kyle Hamilton can do that.
Yep.
He's got that in the bag. Look, it's a very divisive issue amongst the Lions fan base right now. There are people who are like, oh, yeah, he's the best player in the draft. Why don't we want him? We got to get players, period. Doesn't really matter where. There's a lot of other people that are like, safety, we got to get a pass rush. We got to get somebody that can catch a pass. We got to get a quarterback for the future if this Goff thing doesn't work out.
Not when you run the defense they're running.
The problem is that nobody's wrong in that, because they do need all of that.
Sure.
And it's just a matter of prioritization.
Yeah.
I would be fine with Kyle Hamilton at number 2. He's my number 1 player overall in the draft. I don't have any problem with it at all. And I understand the importance of what they're trying to do defensively.
Yep.
But if at the same time, the pass rush, having that good pass rush, it means you can get away with a little bit less coverage at safety, and I understand that dynamic too.
Well, but your point again, if they re-sign Harris, and then they decide, okay, well, we'll use pick 32 or 34 on one of those other edge rushers, and there's no reason to think how deep this class is that the guy at 32 or 34 could still wind up being better than the guy if you drafted him at 2. That's
right.
How deep it is, and there will be 2 or 3, maybe even 4 impact edge rushers that get drafted outside maybe the top 30 that have long NFL careers.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. In this draft class especially, it's a very good year to need pass rush help.
Yeah,
and the Lions happen to need it.
Yes.
And look, is Aiden Hutchinson a home run? He's certainly a stand-up double. That's for sure. I'm not sure you're going to get a lot more than that. Is Kayvon Thibodeau there? Is Trayvon Walker there? Is Jermaine Johnson? George Karlaftis. Like that's a lot of names there that are really good players. They should all be gone by the time that 30 to 32 comes around. But then Boye Mafe is a very interesting guy, and he honestly presents better as a stand-up outside linebacker for a more traditional 3-4. But it's hard to ignore what that guy can do.
Yes.
And another guy who really looked good in Mobile in Senior Bowl practices and showed that he could use his hands, showed that he could do things other than just beat guys with speed. That's something that's important to this defense. So that's the path. That's one of the 2 paths that I think they're going to explore. Is that if they feel comfortable, they will like a guy like that at 32, 34. Then you get Kyle Hamilton at number 2, and your secondary is solved, because if everybody's healthy at cornerback, that means Jeff Okudah, Ifeatu Melifonwu, Jerry Jacobs, all coming back from injuries. They have a good young cornerback core. A.J. Parker, an undrafted free agent last year, had his moments, showed that guy can at least play as your backup inside slot guy. He had some good moments. They have some potential there. Amani Oruwariye back for another season. Pretty solid outside player. They don't necessarily have a number one there, but they got a lot of number twos, number threes. You can make that work defensively, but you got to get that playmaking safety. And look, this is a good safety class as well. And then I say that Lewis Seen, the Brisker from Penn State is another one. I like him. Daxton Hill out of Michigan, certainly a worthy pick at 32 or 34 if he's there. I don't think he's going to last that long. But they're not in the same class as Kyle Hamilton. That's how much better he is than everybody else.
They're rare players, and that's why it's sort of like Hutchinson too. His size and his athletic ability, the combination is kind of rare. So it's kind of hard to. That's why when you get these guys and you have to decide which way do we go, and even if it's between those two, you're good either way because at least you're getting a player that just doesn't come around, or at least his size and athletic ability for the position doesn't come around very often.
Yeah, and the two physical comps for Aiden Hutchinson are Jared Allen and Julius Peppers. Those guys were pretty good.
Yes.
They each had over 150 career sacks.
Absolutely.
I think if Hutchinson comes out anywhere close to that, I think whatever team gets him is going to be happy.
Okay, so then do you think because you were talking about defensive tackle, so do you think they're okay there, that they're not going to need anybody?
They're good at nose. Aleem McNeil is back. John Pennicini, a late round pick from the year before, is a perfectly fine run stuffing backup. Look, they're losing Nick Williams. He will need to be replaced, but that's not a priority position.
Does Brockers move inside?
Very good question is what's going to happen with Michael Brockers. We're not honestly sure what's going on with that. There's some school of thought that he will be a cap victim.
Okay.
The problem is they don't save a great deal of money if they do that, and they do really like his presence in the locker. Another guy, really solid locker room guy, culture guy, winner. Having guys who have won before in Detroit, it's important because nobody in Detroit has won. This team has one playoff win in the Super Bowl era. It was 31 years ago, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's I feel your pain, no question, as a Jet fan. And I know that's why as a Jet fan, I usually tell them, hey, trust me, there's fan bases that have been through harder times than even we have. So, okay, so overall, that seems to be pretty much, if we're talking about the main upgrades. Yeah. Definitely look at adding one of these quarterbacks, but more than likely not going to be at number 2. Definitely have to add an edge rusher.
Yes.
Definitely have to add a premier safety and add 2 safeties at least, either through free agency and the draft, and wide receiver. Get a speed guy and maybe a guy with size. That's pretty much what you're looking at as far as the main needs for this team.
Definitely. They do also need another tight end. TJ Hawkinson right now is the only tight end on the roster. That's a problem. I guess technically Jared Pinkney is still around, but he was on the roster for exactly one day in the regular season. They got to get somebody else there too. They do run some 2 tight end sets. They are in the market for a late round guy like a Connor Hayward, a guy who can play fullback and tight end. A move tight end like a Daniel Bellinger in the 6th or 7th round. Perfect fit for what they need. They don't need to go big on that, but late day 3 where they're going to have 2 6th round picks, they're going to have 2 7th round picks once all the trade compensations finalized and comp picks come out. One of those should be a tight end, and one of those will probably be a developmental defensive back, probably a safety, hybrid safety, slot corner type of guy that they can bring along. Look, Tracy Walker is a free agent. They would love to have him back if the price is right. That would help one of the safety spots. But yeah, expect them to be a player in free agency at safety and at wide receiver, but also hit those positions as well in the draft.
By the way, if they don't re-sign Tracy Walker, then they need maybe up to 3 safeties this offseason.
Yeah, yeah, because again, right now it's Will Harris and Brady Breeze are your starting safety tandems.
Not going to work.
No, no, sir, it's not.
As far as Hawkinson, because I remember when he came into the league, there was the hope that he was going to be more of a downfield guy. Is it where, well, the Lions just like and need his blocking ability, that they kind of keep him in line more than they would have if they could allow him to run out? Okay, so is that...
Yeah, I get exactly where you're going. Yeah. Yes. They would like him to be used more down the field. And I think that's something that you're going to see now that Ben Johnson is in control of the offense.
Okay.
That's
so
something
that means they could actually target a tight end maybe even earlier if the right guy was there to take the pressure off Hawkinson.
Right. And look, I know it would be very early to take a guy like Isaiah Likely they have the number 66 pick. That's early for a tight end with all the other needs that they've got. But, man, that guy would be a perfect tandem fit for what they want T.J. Hawkinson to be. I don't think they'll do it, but
if he's on the board,
it's not
the
worst
idea
in the world.
He's a good player. Yeah.
The only places that this team you can say that they don't need to draft anybody are running back, where they've got 4 of them under contract who are all capable NFL starters.
Yes.
Look, they took Jamar Jefferson last year in the 7th round. He was inactive, healthy scratch. He comes in and plays, and he's great.
Yeah.
They nailed it at running back, and they do not need offensive tackle. With Penei Sewell, home run pick at right tackle last year, Taylor Decker in for the next 3 years at left tackle, and he's a good one. They love Matt Nelson as a developmental tackle, and Will Holden will be back as a exclusive rights free agent. So they're good at offensive tackle, which is weird for a team that's picking second. But they have zero need really on the offensive line at all this year. All 5 starters are coming back. Jonah Jackson, their right guard, made the Pro Bowl last year. And he's probably the worst player on the line. So that tells you they're really good at offensive line. It sort of tells you maybe you need something besides the offensive line to be good on your offense. To have a good offense, it's something to consider.
Are they better off actually having Vaitai start, by the way? Is that...
Yeah, Vaitai at right guard wound up being really good. And he and Sewell really bonded. Vaitai, you cannot give that guy enough credit for the development of what Penei Sewell did. As a guy who played right tackle himself, moved inside to right guard. They share a Samoan background and an ancestry. Yeah, they're proud of that. And it was a really, really good fit. Vaitai is probably going to get a contract restructure this offseason that pays him more commensurate as a guard than as a tackle. He's being paid as a tackle right now. Okay. Everything that we've heard in the Detroit media said he will be completely amenable to that. He loves it here and wants to stay and understands his role. So that's a good thing.
Well, it's going to be a very interesting offseason for the Lions, and with that kind of draft capital in year 2 of this new regime, this is big. This is it.
Definitely.
If they're going to succeed, this is going to be the offseason that's going to take them there. So. I'm sure there's a lot of fans that are very excited about the possibilities, and I'm sure there's a lot of fans that are also kind of skeptical about, well, we've been down this road before. How are we going to screw this one up?
Yeah, and I can't tell those people that they're wrong. I can just say that I've covered a lot of bad teams. I'm a Lions fan from Cleveland who has a sojourn in Houston in there too, covering the Texans. I know bad football when I see it. I also know when a team is starting to do the right thing. And I really do believe that they're working in the right direction here. They've got to get, but you're right. They have to nail this offseason. They cannot miss on any of those first 3 picks if they're going to rise up and challenge the Packers in the next couple seasons. But the groundwork's in place. I was very impressed with how Dan Campbell handled last season. The locker room really came together around him. The guys who didn't want to be any part of that, they're gone. There was a lot of people that needed to go. There was a lot of dead weight that really had to be cut from both the coaching staff and the front office. They've done that, but last year was tough, man. It was painful. But getting late season wins, beating the Packers in week 17. And I know people are like, oh, well, Aaron Rodgers played the first half of that game, and you know what? The Lions won that half too. That was a huge thing for them. It
showed the Rams.
They did beat the Cardinals, and quite frankly, that were the better team the entire game. Like if you went into that game, like how's that team? Like they were the number one seed at that point.
Yeah.
That
I agree.
Lions show something. So the arrow is definitely pointing up. It's just how high can that arrow go right away? Probably a year off yet from the postseason, but you never know. Like look where Cincinnati was 2 years ago. And look what they just did.
Yeah,
they got it right at quarterback and wide receiver, and that's unfortunately the Lions may have the quarterback. They do not have the receiving talent yet, and they don't have the playmaking secondary. I got to give the Bengals a lot of credit. Their defense is so much better than people get credit for and realize. Guys like Jesse Bates, signing a guy like Trey Hendrickson. Look, the Lions can do that. They can go out and get a premium safety, get a premium pass rusher. I'm not saying that they're going to be what the Bengals are, but I'm not saying that they can't do it either.
Well, that's the excitement of the NFL.
It is. It really is.
And it's
why we have hope. It's why we keep watching when we're in Detroit.
Lastly, free agency. So give me a big splash. Give me a name out there that if they were going to spend on one player or two players, who would it be?
The big one is Marcus Williams, the safety from the Saints. Brought up under Aaron Glenn's tutelage. The Saints, he's made it pretty clear he's testing free agency. Probably won't be back in New Orleans, not that they can afford him. He is a perfect fit for what they need. Absolutely, no question about home run signing. So that would be, and that's very widely expected in Detroit as well.
Okay.
So that's that they haven't really hidden the fact that they're going to go after him. Wide receiver, there's a lot of people that want Allen Robinson to come home to Detroit. He's from Detroit. I'm not sure that they want to pay that much for him.
Yeah.
They are looking at that second tier of wide receivers. It's not necessarily sexy names, but guys like Christian Kirk, Byron Pringle, DJ Chark, somebody like that that won't necessarily be the number one. That would mean that they would have to get a number one in the draft.
Yeah, they still have to get a one. Yeah.
Yeah. But that would round out so they can go 3 wide comfortably. They can go 4 wide if they need to do that, and do different things to the defense than what they've presented. That's the type of free agent that I'm expecting them to get at wide receiver.
Interesting. Great job as always, Jeff. And we look forward to talking to you again when the draft is over. And obviously, if there's any other big news that comes out of Detroit, because there's so much big news happening in the NFL
it's
every day.
It never sleeps, baby.
No. But so far, nothing yet for Detroit or the Jets. So our time is coming. We're just patiently waiting. And
yes.
Hopefully this will be a big offseason for us both. And we'll talk to you real soon. And when we hopefully you'll be pleased with how everything transpired over these upcoming couple of months.
I hope so. As the great Detroit coach Chuck Daly once said, I'm a pessimist is an optimist with experience. That never fit any city better than Detroit.
And YouTube show, when is that available?
We have that every Wednesday night. We're actually recording tonight.
Okay.
We will have things going on the Detroit Lions podcast. Check that out on YouTube. Thanks for the plug.
All you got to do is type in Detroit Lions podcast.
You'll come right to it.
Yeah, easy. Jeff, appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.